Welcome to Midnight Tales. Here you will discover new stories, profound lessons, and fantastic adventures. Remember to support us by subscribing to the channel and activating the notification bell. Now, make yourself comfortable, close your eyes. Let's begin the journey. Chapter 5. Lessons from the Shadows. The next day, Kallipolis awoke to a different light, no longer the golden glow of the previous morning, but a softer brightness, as if the sun had decided to slow its pace so as not to disturb anyone. Nikos opened his eyes slowly, still enveloped in the silence of his room. The wind seemed to have fallen asleep, and in its place there was a quiet balance, a deep breath coming from the entire island. When he left the house, everything seemed slightly quieter than usual, as if nature were trying to say something without raising its voice too much. Philon was waiting for him near the path, his hands clasped behind his back. "Today," he said with a slight smile, "we won't listen to the wind. Today we'll listen to the shadow." Nikos frowned slightly, curious. "Can shadows talk?" "In a way, yes," replied his grandfather, "but it doesn't use sounds, it uses expectations." They walked together towards the hill, advancing at the same slow, almost suspended pace. The leaves of the olive trees did not tremble as they had the day before. They remained still, illuminated by a gentle light that did not hurt the eyes. They arrived at the circle of stones. This time the school seemed different, more intimate, more cozy, and the light of the sky created long, soft shadows that stretched across the rocks like silent blankets. Philon sat down and pointed to the space in front of him. "Look at your shadow, Nikos. Not the trees, not the stones. Yours." The boy settled down next to him. His shadow stretched out on the ground, mimicking his every little movement without haste, without hesitation. "It seems calm," he murmured. "It is," said Philon. "The shadow never runs. It doesn't precede you. It doesn't overtake you. It stays with you, whatever you do. It is patient and faithful." Nikos watched again. His shadow seemed to breathe with him. It moved slowly, following the rhythm of the sun and his movements. "What should I learn from it?" he asked. "That not everything that belongs to you has to be fast," explained his grandfather. "There are parts of you that grow slowly, parts you can't force, and they are often the most important parts." The wind began to caress the stones lightly, but without disturbing them. It carried with it the scent of wood and earth warmed by the sun. The hill seemed almost suspended between one breath and the next. "Watch how the shadow lengthens and shortens without ever complaining," continued Philon. "It is flexible, but it always remains itself. It is a teacher of humility and calm." Nikos remained silent for a long moment. The more he looked at the shadow, the more he felt those words taking root inside him, like little seeds that are in no hurry to sprout. His grandfather closed his eyes, letting the light warm his face. "One day," he said in a low voice, "you will understand that many worries are just illusions that move too quickly. But your shadow, it reminds you of what remains stable." The boy took a deep breath. Time seemed to slow down. The stones, the earth, the olive trees. Everything was enveloped in a balance that gave security, as if nothing could disturb that quiet. They remained there, together without speaking. The sun moved slowly, and with it their shadows changed shape rhythmically as part of an ancient dance that needed no music. When Philon stood up, he did so with slow, measured movements. "That's enough for today," he said. You've learned the lesson of the shadow. Tomorrow, we'll learn the lesson of water." Nikos nodded, feeling a new calm flow through him. As they walked back home, the sea began to make itself heard in the distance, like a soft greeting accompanying them along the path. And so, amid silence, reflections, and quiet footsteps, the day ended as it had begun, with the promise of another small, slow, and precious discovery on the serene island of Kallipolis. Chapter 6. The Lesson of Water. The following morning arrived with a soft, almost velvety light. There was no wind, no noise, only a deep silence that seemed to envelop everything like a gentle blanket. Nikos left his house and found his grandfather Philon sitting on the step, gazing out to sea. His figure seemed part of the landscape, as if he had been sculpted by the same calm that inhabited the island. "Today," Philon said in a low voice, "we will listen to the water." Nikos nodded without speaking. Words seemed superfluous that morning. They walked silently along the path that led down to the beach. With each step, the soft sound of the waves grew closer, more present, like an invitation to approach with respect. The sand was warm, and the smell of salt filled the air with sweetness. They sat near the shore, where the water barely touched their feet. The waves, calm as a breath, advanced and receded without haste. "Listen," said Philon, "not the sea, the water." Nikos closed his eyes. The sea was vast, powerful, but the water that touched the shore, was different. It was more intimate, sweeter, closer to their daily lives. "Water never resists," continued his grandfather. "It doesn't force anything, it doesn't push, it doesn't hold back. It takes the shape of things and then lets them go." A longer wave came and touched their ankles, cool and light. Nikos felt it recede slowly, without haste, as if it wanted to teach him patience. "Would you like to be like water?" asked Philon. The boy thought about it for a long time. The movement of water was simple, yet deeply wise. "Yes," he said finally. "I wish I could let things go so easily." His grandfather smiled. "You learn, in small steps, just like water does when it flows between stones." They sat there for a long time. The waves rolled in and out, always the same, always calm. Each movement seemed to take away a little weight, a little tension, as if the sea were slowly cleansing Nikos's mind. "Water," said Philon after a long silence, "teaches us that strength is not always hardness. Sometimes strength is softness. It is flexibility. It is the ability to change shape without changing nature." Nikos watched the waves with renewed attention. There were tiny reflections of light moving on the surface, delicate signs that seemed to contain an ancient language. "Today your lesson is this: let go of what you cannot hold on to and welcome what comes without fear." His grandfather's words entered him like water between grains of sand. Simple, sweet, deeply true. The sun began to rise higher, and the sea lit up with golden reflections. Philon rose slowly, letting the water wet his feet once more. "Let's go back," he said. "Tomorrow, we'll listen to the stone." Nikos turned one last time toward the sea. The water continued its movement, unchanged, patient as ever. And as he walked back along the path, he felt a new calm within himself, as if something had finally found its place. Chapter 7. The Garden of Slow Questions. The following morning, the island of Kallipolis seemed enveloped in an even deeper quiet than usual. The sky was a pale blue, as if it had just learned to be sky, and the breeze moved the air with soft, almost timid movements. Nikos woke up slowly, as if emerging from a long and gentle dream. Before getting up, he lay there listening. It was a habit he had recently discovered and was beginning to enjoy more and more. That day, his grandfather Philon was already waiting for him near the old olive tree that marked the entrance to the path. "Today," he said calmly, "we're going to the quietest place on the island." Nikos looked at him curiously. Quieter than the cliff? Or the slow song's forest? Philon nodded slowly with a slight smile. Much quieter. So quiet that if you stay there too long, even your thoughts begin to slow down. The boy followed his grandfather along a path that led into the heart of the island. Light filtered through the trees, falling in small pieces like confetti of sunshine. Each step was accompanied by a slight crunch of dry leaves. No sudden noises, no running, just the natural rhythm of walking. After a while, the path opened up into a clearing. In the center lay a simple but surprising garden, plants arranged in concentric circles like motionless waves. Each flower seemed to breathe slowly, opening and closing its petals as if following a silent beat. "This," said Philon with a broad but calm gesture, "is the garden of slow questions." Nikos's eyes widened. "But what does that mean?" His grandfather sat down on a smooth stone, inviting the boy to do the same. "People come here for one reason only, to think about questions that are in no hurry to be answered." Nikos remained silent, trying to understand. "Why a garden?" he asked after a moment. "Because important questions," explained his grandfather, "grow just like plants. They start small, then they stretch, spread, change shape. You can't pull them out of the ground before they're ready." "And how do I know which questions are important?" Philon smiled, looking at a long row of white flowers swaying gently. "You recognize them because they don't shout at you. They whisper." The boy closed his eyes, letting the warm wind caress his forehead. He felt his breathing slow down, as if that place invited him to become part of its tranquility. "Grandpa, can I try?" "Of course." Nikos looked down and tried to think of a question he had never had time to ask. One came to him effortlessly. What makes a day truly important? He didn't say it out loud. He simply let it settle inside him like a delicate pebble. Philon watched him, nodding slowly. "When a question is good," he murmured, "you mustn't grab hold of it. You have to let it breathe." Time in the garden seemed to bend, slow down, almost stop. The plants swayed in a gentle dance. The air smelled of thyme and damp earth. The distant song of a bird sounded muffled, as if it too had learned to speak softly. "Shall we go back?" Philon asked after a while, rising slowly. "Already?" "Yes. Slow questions should be left here to grow. We'll come back another day to see how much they've matured." Nikos turned one last time toward the garden. He had the feeling that this quiet, peaceful place had already taught him something, even without explaining it directly. And as they walked home, the boy felt something inside him, a calm thought, a thread of simple wisdom that was beginning to make its way, like a sprout emerging from the earth after a long sleep. Chapter 8. The Lantern of Silent Questions. Evening fell on Kallipolis like a large silk veil. It was unhurried, with no sharp shadows. It settled slowly on everything, on the branches of the olive trees, on the tiles of the white houses, on the path that Nikos was walking along with his grandfather Philon. The air was warm and smelled of warm wood and the sea. A gentle breeze blew softly, as if to remind anyone who felt it that even the wind sometimes prefers to speak softly. "Tonight we're going to a special place," said Philon, walking with his usual calm. His voice was like slow music, the kind that never imposes itself but stays with you. Nikos asked no questions. He had learned that with his grandfather, questions have their time, and often the answers come on their own. At the highest point of the hill, where the rocks became smooth as if they had been caressed by centuries of wind, stood a small circular building, the Lantern of Silent Questions. It was not a lighthouse. It did not show the way to sailors. It was something different, something that the inhabitants of the island understood more with their hearts than with words. Inside, in the center of the round room, was a lantern made of light-colored stone. It had no flame, yet it seemed to emit a soft light, like a quiet thought that arises effortlessly. "Sit down," said Philon, pointing to two cushions nearby. Nikos sat down, trying not to make a sound. The light from the lantern drew soft circles around them. No sharp shadows, no dark corners. Everything was blurred, like a dream about to begin. "This lantern," explained his grandfather, "is not for illuminating what you see outside, but what you feel inside." Nikos closed his eyes for a moment. The silence in the room was not empty. It was filled with something difficult to explain, a silence that seemed to say, "Stay, breathe, listen." "Many people think," continued Philon, "that the most important questions are those we find in books. But the ancient philosophers knew that there are questions that arise spontaneously, like a wave reaching the shore. You can't stop it, you can't anticipate it. You can only listen to it when it arrives." Nikos felt a deep calm slowly descend within him, as if that lantern had lit something he didn't know he had. "And what questions should I ask?" he asked softly. His voice seemed almost part of the wind. His grandfather smiled, a soft, unhurried smile. "None?" Then he added, "Let the questions find you." They remained silent, a long silence, but not a heavy one. It seemed to flow slowly like the sea on quiet evenings. After a while, the light from the lantern changed slightly. It didn't get stronger or weaker, just different. Warmer, closer. Nikos felt a thought surface on its own, like a fish emerging from the surface of the water. "Why am I always in such a hurry to understand everything right away?" He didn't say it out loud, but the lantern seemed to have heard him. Philon, without opening his eyes, murmured, "Everything has its time, Nikos, even understanding. The important thing is not to force it. Wisdom does not come with rushing, but with stillness." The boy breathed slowly. His chest rose and fell like a gentle wave. He felt his mind empty a little, not of thought, but of haste, as if, for the first time, there was room to let in what really matters. The lantern glowed one last time, then seemed to return to its normal light, a sign that the evening's lesson was over. Philon rose slowly. "Remember, Nikos, the lantern does not answer questions. It shows you those that are ready to be heard." They stepped out into the sweet night. The sky was dotted with large, quiet stars. The air smelled of herbs and salt. As they walked home, Nikos felt a new, different kind of calm inside him, as if the lantern had given him something invisible, but precious. A small seed. With time and calm, he would understand how to make it grow. And so, under the soft light of the moon, Nikos' journey continued. Slower and slower, deeper and deeper, just like a thought that falls asleep, only to wake up clearer in the morning. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed it and would like to hear more, please